Ian Trottier here for Discussions of Truth, and we're in Las Vegas. This is the 21st, I'm told, the 21st Clay Clark event. I have two incredible guests here, two incredible ladies that are sitting at the table with me. Kaysha Richardson, and she's holding a Richardson hat at the moment, and Lauren Cupp. Kaysha, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Lauren. Briefly introduce yourselves for listeners, please.
Yeah, so my name is Kaysha Richardson. I am an American Indian born in Canada. I worked for the provincial government at a maximum security prison for the criminally insane. My father was a mechanical engineer who pioneered research in early 2020 outlining improper contagion mitigation and how it was used for bioterrorism and election interference in Canada and the United States, and eventually treason. The way he explains it to me is that 20 years ago, the CDC changed the guidelines, which created a critical weakness in Canada and the United States, making it weak to biological attack, which was an act preparatory to levying war, and instantly treason. So we reported on this, and we ended up being persecuted and tortured in Canada. I had to flee to the United States as an American Indian on October 1st of 2020. I went to Montana Sweetgrass Port of Entry, and I presented all this evidence to the border agents on the American side, and I ended up getting arrested by the border agents. They took all my travel documents, tried to destroy them, handed me over to immigration, who put me in an immigration detention for 7 months, a maximum security prison with military and immigration detainees. And they tried to deport me back to Canada multiple times, but Canada sent them letters saying, she's an Indian, just release her. We're not taking deportation from American Indians because, of course, we're sovereign on both sides of the border. I'm covered by Article 6 of the Constitution and, treaty. So any treaty ratified by the Senate is the supreme law of the land, right? So the immigration, they paroled me on March 31st, 2021 into the United States. And they paroled me to American citizens who ended up trafficking me around the States for the last 3 years, drugging me, beating me, sexually assaulting me, holding me at gunpoint, putting videos of it on the internet for finances, and I was on a tracking device system by immigration. I wasn't allowed to leave the house at certain times. I wasn't allowed to leave the city without permission. I wasn't allowed to live with another person without permission. These people were known to the police for their egregious crimes against other people, which was unbeknownst to me. And so all of this was done to suppress the evidence of the treason ultimately in Canada and the US, which Biden benefited from the suppression of, and we have the evidence that he was involved, the Biden administration was involved in my trafficking. But this was, if this was presented, if the DHS people at the border dealt with it from October 1st of 2020, January 6th would have never happened, and what's going on with Trump right now would have never happened either. He would actually still be in office.
Kaysha, thank you very much for that introduction. Lauren Cupp, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, I'm Lauren Cupp. Let's see, my daughter was molested for 7 years, and the best thing that the police could do was a protective order. She was sent to a forensic interview place that was unaccredited, referred to by the lead detective on the case. The protective order was granted based upon a preponderance of evidence that a sex offense occurred. The man violated the protective order, and the wife of the child molester spit in my face, which ultimately led to a misdemeanor on me instead of the child molester violating the protective order. So then I started digging deeper into the financials, and the prosecutor happens to own the Child Advocacy Center where my daughter had her forensic interview. And I uncovered 2 child sex trafficking rings. And so I exposed them on all social media outlets. When I did that, they started coming after me, covering my cameras, the police did, at my door. The DCS, Department of Child Services, slammed court paperwork in my door. And ultimately, I went to the park with my kids on May the 29th. 22 male officers showed up, arrested me, and I was in a bikini with my kids. They had an AR-15 2 feet away from my head saying, "I'll shoot you, BITCH, I'll shoot you," and a barking dog in front of me. I asked them to take me to the hospital. They did, eventually, after I begged them to. They drugged me at the hospital and then told me if I did not give them a statement that they were going to put my kids in foster care. My kids are currently in Department of Child Services custody still to this day. And the same judge that we filed criminal complaints against and the lead investigator is on both my criminal case and my children's case.
Okay, quick question. Are you able to name some names here? What was the name of that prosecutor?
Brent Eaton in Indiana. He's in Hancock County, Indiana.
Can you spell that name?
It's Brent, Brent, last name is Eaton, Eaton. And he also owns a drug rehab that he refers all his, convictions to, and he owns a clearinghouse as well.
So
they're all 501c's.
You were unlawfully arrested because of your action regarding your daughter being molested.
Yeah.
It was retaliation and exposing the trafficking ring. And they actually created the circumstances to put her in that duress and create for that to happen, because they had her initially, one officer show up to her while she was in the bikini with her children at the park, who was unnamed, in regular clothing, regular car, unmarked car, threatening her and her children. And then he left and came back with these 22 male officers who then had the guns pointed to her head, kicking her head into the cement, had a canine dog barking from her face, then arrested her, drugged her, and then interrogated her and told her, "We're going to take your children to foster care." That's torture under the Convention Against Torture. That is the legal definition. So,
and then they made me ride in the front of the police car, and my ex was a cop, so I don't know why I didn't even think about it then, but I don't remember the ride to jail. I don't
or
know.
the interview that they did to her interrogation.
Because I was in and out of consciousness.
So it was torture. And now they are leveraging her own children against her, and every time she tries to get help, like she said, we were in the court and we had to call the police in the court. I was there as a witness and an ADA, and the judge told me that you need to leave or else I'm going to arrest you. And I said, okay, well, I'm leaving. And we got up to leave. She said, well, if you leave, I'm going to arrest you. I said, well, you know what? Then I'm calling the police. And she said, oh, really? I'm going to arrest you. So I picked up the phone. I called the police. I said, I'm an American Indian. I'm a human trafficking victim. I'm here as a witness for Lauren, who's also been trafficked and her children as a witness. And the judge is criminally intimidating us in this hearing and trying to force us not to leave. They have 3 sheriffs intimidating us behind us. And then the judge turned to the transcriber and said, we're going to go off the record, stop recording. The judge said,
what's his name?
Her name
Lori
is
Shine.
Yes.
And she's in Boone County Circuit Court in Zionsville, Indiana.
And that, when we went out to the police, I said to the judge, I said, you do whatever you want. We're leaving. You don't have the authority to arrest us in this family hearing. We're going. So we went outside, spoke to the police. They took our statement. They said because of what happened, they'd be giving it to the FBI and the RCMP in Canada, which is the Canadian FBI, and passing it through Interpol. I don't know if they even did that. They said they handed it off to the sheriff, probably the same one who's involved. But in that hearing,
what's the name of that sheriff?
Well,
Tony Harris.
Yes, and then the initial person, so the people who had arrested Lauren and drugged her that day and tortured her, they had the lead investigator on that case that day as Morgan Carpenter. That same lead investigator, Lauren used my father's research of the human trafficking and treason to file to connect.
Is this how you know each other?
Yes, I came across her online, her story online, and then I ended up having her on my show, the Karis Project, Karis. But I came and that's how I got in contact with her. But that lead investigator, Morgan Carpenter, they put her on Lauren's case after she was involved in her torture, put her on her case for the treason report evidence and the human trafficking and the bioterrorism report.
To testify against me.
And also to testify against her. So that Morgan Carpenter's in every case, the criminal, the family, and her personal case, speaking on all of them against Lauren and for the same, but never for.
And the judge judge refuses to recuse herself.
I told the judge, you have a vested interest in a conflict of interest. You need to recuse yourself and make a continuance until this is dealt with. And she started threatening me. So I
judge?
called so I called
And
the police.
then they ultimately revoked my bond because I called the police on the police.
Yeah. And that's what they said.
And we've got recorded call.
Yeah.
Because I called the police on the police. They revoked my bond.
Yeah.
So we fled Indiana. I have a home in Indiana that I own. Yeah.
But we had to flee because the persecution that they were putting towards us because of making the reports. And they won't give her daughter any victim services who was molested for 7 years and won't give her protection against the predator that has molested her.
And what's the name of the predator?
Derek Orlaska.
And you have evidence against this person?
Oh, yeah. He was found guilty based upon a preponderance of evidence that a sex offense occurred and a protective order was granted, but there's no court minutes for this protective order. He didn't appear for the protective order. Nobody appeared. I found that out from later. Nobody appeared. It was mailed to us. The protective order was.
Where is this person today?
Hancock County, Indiana.
Living as a free citizen?
You got it.
Yeah.
And yet your daughter is in the custody of the
Department.
CPS.
Yep.
Yeah.
Child Protective Services. Yep.
Do you have any communication with your daughter?
They won't let me speak to her. And I've had full, sole, and legal custody of both my kids since they were born. Their dad's not involved.
Yeah.
Both of your children are with the CPS. Are they together or are they separate?
They're together.
Okay, so Kaysha, just a little bit more from you. I want you to talk about the evidence. You basically, you're working together, of course. And prior to this, we were speaking to Jeff Zink,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
of course, and he's trying to help out any way he can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lauren, I want you to comment in regards to Jeff and how he's helping and what listeners may be able to do to help. But Kaysha, I want you to get back so listeners can understand what is going on with your evidence in regard to the Biden administration being part of you personally having been trafficked.
Right. So we have all the evidence, all the documents, video, audio, every person that we've come in contact with. We have all the documents that I was given since the day that I came. And it was trafficking from day. So when I came to the border, Jonathan Gruak was the one at Montana Sweetgrass Port of Entry who detained me. And in fact, he left early that day and asked other people to finish processing me. They made me wait.
You came in through Sweetgrass, Montana.
Yeah, Port of Entry, one of the biggest ports for Canada and U.S. border, and it's also my ancestral homeland as an Indian.
This is on the
American
east side of Glacier Park. Is that where
Montana,
it is geographically in
Port of
Montana?
Entry.
Do you know that? Right by the Blackfoot or Blackfeet reservation, is that correct? Do you know?
Potentially. There's reservations in the surrounding areas. There's quite a few. And so it's my ancestral homeland. My sister tribes are actually in that area as well. The Attorney General of my sister tribe in Montana wrote a letter of support for me to Congress because of
what is your
happened
sister
to
tribe?
me. So there is a couple, but there is a Chippewa tribe in Montana, and Jesse Big Knife is the Attorney General of it. He wrote a letter of support for me to Congress to bill H.R. 4228 Border Tribal Priority Crossing Act because of what happened to me at the border. So anyways, after that, like I said, we have all of the evidence from the videos, the audio, conversations that we have with these people. Some of the people who sexually assaulted me were dual citizens of Canada and the U.S., like Robert A. Cannon, and they confessed to the crimes, but they're still walking free. They have not been arrested or anything. As well as the person, like I said, who pulled the gun on me, was drugging me, trying to sell me into prostitution and all these things, putting things online of things he did to me while I was drugged. He's known to the police for terrible crimes, which I was unaware of. And the police made this known to me and my father when they came to my house to see if I was okay after the church people called the police when he pulled the gun on me. The Biden administration directly benefited from this because they stole the election and they suppressed the evidence. They trafficked me to suppress the evidence of what was going on with this bioterrorism and election interference which ultimately is how they stole from Trump, right? The election from Trump. And it's more easily laid out in the documents, but they trafficked
You
it
have
to
those
suppress it.
documents online?
Oh yeah, everywhere online. So you can, everything is up public. My dad is a published researcher, and his work is sitting in the Library of Congress, protected by United States copyright. But you can find it online at the dsrkarisconsulting.com, and there's a package of information and evidence for every state in America he's created so that people can add their complaints to anything that happened to them, crimes that were exacerbated during the COVID pandemic. So if you lost your job, your business closed down, you were forced to get the jab, maybe your kids were trafficked, you house stolen, lawfully imprisoned, any crimes that were exacerbated because of the pandemic, you can take the statement package from your state and add your complaint to it, take it to local law enforcement and FBI, and this is what people are already doing around the states. He's also made packages for Australia, the UK, Canada, and some places in the West Indies and Asia has reached out, some places in Asia, to get the same information, to start making their complaints. But ultimately, Trump is not going to traffic somebody with evidence of election interference to commit treason against his own administration. The Biden administration benefited from this suppression because if this would have been used in early 2020, January 6th would have never happened, and Trump would not be in the position he's in now, because my dad outlines how they stole the election by starting with the improper... As a Canadian, yes, by starting within the improper mitigation, because contagion mitigation is the first response in any pandemic, and they completely skipped it in order to do all of the other crimes, like forcing people to be locked down, forcing them out of their churches, forcing them to be jabbed by things that are experimental, killing people, trafficking people, all these things, right? So locking them in quarantine camps, which is like concentration camps. So all of this was done because they skipped the first response. That's how he explains it to me. He's an engineer. A lot of engineers who's looked over his research say that it's the most brilliant piece of engineering they've ever seen, and they've never seen anything like it, so it tells me it's well out of my scope of understanding. And the law enforcement he's been working with in Canada for the last year, the RCMP, which is the FBI, keep asking if he's ex-law enforcement because they love the way he's outlined the documents. He's laid it out so no one else has to do the work. It's all there. You just take it and you add it to your complaint. And so on top of it, lawyers don't really have to take the bullets because he has to speak in front of a jury of his peers. So if they call him as a witness, he is the only one that can argue it. A lawyer can't argue engineering, just like a lawyer can't argue a medical report. A doctor has to come in to do that in front of a jury of his peers who will argue against him. And nobody in the last 3 years has stood up against him and said, oh, your engineering report is wrong about all this stuff, because it's not. And you also have to risk the consequences of treason, which is death. Nobody's going to do that. So, and it's both ways. If you report treason falsely, the consequence is the same as committing it. So it's a lot. So
you were basically targeted. You were trafficked and but directly targeted because you were the daughter of this person that revealed as a Canadian, that revealed the corruption behind the vote. Have you worked with the voter fraud in 2020? Have you worked with Mike Lindell at all?
I haven't directly gotten contact with Mike Lindell, but some people have told us we should get in contact with him. Now, my dad, he's a Canadian, of course, like you said. So at first, he has no vested interest, but everyone understands that if America loses their freedom, the rest of the world is screwed. America is the last bastion of freedom for the world and Christianity, and it's the only place where you have genuine God-given rights. We're endowed by our Creator, and we have inalienable rights, but we have the burden of responsibility as Christians to uphold it because it's a God-given country. Now, so it makes sense to defend the rights of the only country keeping the rest of the world safe, and also it's our Christian duty. But I'm an American Indian, and I'm sovereign on both sides of the border, so it makes sense to me as well for what's going on to be involved in doing what's right in this way.
Okay, so before we get back to Lauren briefly.
Hold on, wait. Do you want to get him on camera?
No, dude. Thanks for asking, man. This is Roger. Okay, so before we get to Lauren, Kaysha, please give listeners a website where they can find this documentation. This is incredibly important.
Yes, of course. So the website you can find all of the documents at is DSR Karis, Karis, consulting.com. That's DSRCarisconsulting.com. You can send us an email for humanitarian stuff at unity@DSRCaris, consulting.com. And you can also find us on Twitter, Rumble, and BitChute at the Karis Project. So and then Karis, Karis Project. And we can help you. Just send us a message or something.
Okay, now, and just in review, ladies and gentlemen, what you've just heard here is a testimony from Kaysha Richardson saying that basically I'm reiterating, saying that she was targeted and trafficked because of the knowledge that her father has as a Canadian that would expose the election fraud. So incredibly important. Please help Kaysha out immediately in any way you can. Lauren, let's get to you now.
Yes.
Okay, so your case with your case is incredible, but you've been able to draw in the help of Jeff Zink. Talk a little bit more about how Jeff has been able to help you and where you're at in regards to that. Now he's running for office in Arizona,
yes,
but he's helping you in the state of Indiana.
Well, he's helping both of us.
Yeah,
really.
We actually had him on the podcast, so that's how we knew him, and he's got us in contact with some pretty good people to help us out. He actually let us stay with him for a little while in Arizona because we had to flee Indiana, where she has a house, because of the persecution and torture from the law enforcement, the courts, and the retaliation after she turned in my dad's research
to the FBI.
Yeah, you turned it in, trusting them.
To the FBI in Indianapolis
to get help.
But of course, they didn't do anything.
Yeah, they retaliated against her and even threatened me so that I wouldn't be able to try and help her. But the engineering report is called The Engineering of Bioterrorism, Child Trafficking, Treason, and the Crime of Aggression. And when she turned that in, instantly after we left the FBI, one of the people involved in her arrest pulled us over. And she wasn't even speeding. One
of the people involved in your arrest found the two of you together and pulled
us over after we left the FBI. And
so they were trailing you.
They said I was going 60 miles over the speed limit, but didn't write me a ticket. They just let us go. Yeah. Right? That's a habitual, 15 miles over. Yeah. He looked at my ID, and he was the one directly involved, not the one holding the gun, but the one with the dog.
Yeah.
And you recognize his face?
No, I looked at his name.
Officer Pogorov.
Yeah, there, she can pronounce it.
This is a sheriff?
Yes, Boone County Sheriff, yeah.
Okay, let's get back to briefly Jeff. Bring listeners up to speed in regards to
Jeff's just been helping us out and getting us in contact with different people and trying to expose, our stories and what's really going on.
Indian
and the connection.
Congressman.
Yeah, because I found out I'm Indian, so they say that they target a lot of Indians. Apparently, that's what the tribe guy said. So,
why would they do that?
I guess financially, the trafficking, they make more money from the children.
From the Indian children?
Yes. That's apparently isn't that what the tribe guy said?
Well, something, but Lauren's trying to figure out how to get, she's trying to get in contact, because the DCS people wrote on her children's documents behind her back on the report for the foster care documents and everything that her children were Indian. So she went asking her parents, like, oh, are we Indian or something? And her father said, actually, he's Indian, and it's his parents or something. So she's going to go look for...
Native American Indian,
Yeah, Native American Indian, yes. She's going to go looking for the genealogy information. But it's very questionable why DCS would put that on her report without even telling her about that for her children. It's just very strange.
Does that imply that they may have had information that you weren't privy to?
Well,
or how are you receiving that?
Yeah, it's something they would benefit from, for sure. You can't do that without
financially.
Well, in many ways, yeah. In many
What are the ways?
I guess. Well, there's a lot more resources available to American Indian children, like legally, and especially when they're in duress situation. Well, they're supposed to be. That doesn't mean they always get it.
Right.
So, and it's also fraud to put. I know for myself, whenever people ask me, well, what are you? I have to say I'm an American Indian. If I say I'm anything else, legally, I can lose my status even. It can be fraud, right? So it's a very questionable thing that they've done that, But it turns out she talked to her parents. So Jeff has got us in contact with multiple people in tribes
find out
to help us,
yeah.
to give us protection and support, and some people in Congress and some senators and stuff. So he's doing a lot right now to help us. We really appreciate it a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take a few more minutes here, and I appreciate your time.
No, I
very much
appreciate it.
so. Okay, so obviously I want some call to action items for listeners and how they can help you, but before that, I want you to tell them about some of the victories that you've possibly had in the work that you're doing. Obviously, you want your children free.
Right. Yeah.
You, I suspect you're doing a number of things, but that's part of that is revealing the corruption behind this 2020 election and how fraudulent this current administration is. Of course, not taking political sides, but hey, let's just look at if something's been if there's wrongs that have been committed.
Let's be honest about it.
Right. So Lauren, please tell us some victories on your end, and then Kaysha, you can.
Yeah. So I've just been continuing to expose.
You're here, and that's one victory.
Yeah, right. By the grace of God, we're here because I'm from Indiana, and we've traveled all across. We've stopped in a few places. So by the grace of God, we are both here together. I met with Kaysha, and she's helped me get through a lot of this. And victories. I just want my children back. That's the main thing. But I just keep a positive outlook, and I keep exposing everything that goes on. They tried to put a gag order on me to say which is against my First Amendment right, that I couldn't go on podcasts and I couldn't speak out about this. And they're using the family court system to do this, and it's unconstitutional. It's not constitutional at all. So I'm just thankful for Kaysha and her dad, and us meeting and coming together, because 4 months ago we didn't even know each other from Adam. So it's pretty crazy. I do have a home in Zionsville, Indiana that I can't go back to because of the persecution, and the torture. And
I can't believe how the two of you are so positive after being through what you've been through. I mean,
by the grace of God,
you got to have it's so painful. So Kaysha, tell us some of the victories that you're having.
Well, by God's grace, I'm still alive and in full capacity. It obviously is a very torturous situation and very difficult when you're trafficked from place to place. I feel like I've seen almost all 52 states. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I understand that God has created me for a purpose greater than the sum of my experiences. I think that's true for everybody who's suffering right now in the same situation. I think it's happening for a reason, and I'm glad that, if anything, I think the greatest victory is that all the corruption is being exposed in real time. People are seeing step by step how everything is being done, and at the end of it, I think everybody will see the bigger picture and the details all together. So I'm very glad for that. I'm glad that we're connecting with a bunch of people that we're able to help, and people are feeling isolated, and they're starting to understand that they're not the only ones suffering this way, and there's more people. And once we create that web of connections, we'll be able to be more powerful in getting justice for the people who need it. At the end of the day, that's really what it's about. And myself too, I would appreciate my little sister to be returned, because she was stolen at 16 months old. The first response to my dad putting out the research was them stealing my little sister. She's 4 now, and I haven't seen her in 3 years. The Karis project is actually named after her. Hopefully one day she sees it. If we don't have her until then, but she'll see it and know that we're still fighting for her. We love her and want to help people in similar circumstances. But I think the greatest thing is just the power of God being displayed in these situations. A lot of people have lost hope in God and trust in Him, but these situations show people that courage and faith in God is possible, and literally you can move mountains. I'm not anybody. I'm an American Indian born in Canada. I'm just a regular person. And
just fighting the corruption and getting the truth out there.
We're here.
And it's important because a lot of people don't see it.
Yeah, we're here meeting people, and people I would have never imagined meeting, because it's not something I ever thought about, but God is putting us in the position to be able to do His work. So I think that's a very positive aspect to what's going on.
Okay, so I'm going to stop that here, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so part 2 of the Karis project, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm simply going to give Lauren and Kaysha an opportunity to leave you with some final thoughts. Again, Lauren has, just to reiterate, because we've been spending the last 30 minutes listening, Lauren has her children unlawfully taken and placed into child protective services, and Kaysha is a direct victim of being trafficked herself because of the work her father's done as a Canadian to expose the fraud in the American electoral system. So, Lauren, please leave listeners with some final thoughts, what you would like them to walk away with.
I just say stay encouraged. Follow us on the Karis Project. You can reach me out there because I've been helping out with the Karis Project and the initiative and working with other women and families going through the same thing that I am. And I'd say stay strong, trust God, and get this out to other people, because that's the main importance, that the other people see this information and see the truth of what's really going on in America, and our Constitution is being like ripped up in front of our faces, and we have to take that back.
And Kaysha, please, some final thoughts from you.
Yeah, I would say to have courage going forward. A lot of people might think, well, how does this affect me? It's not my business, or, it's not my problem or not my jurisdiction. But Article 3, Section 3 of the Constitution gives everybody the jurisdiction and right to have interest and authority over the situation. When it comes to treason, this is every American citizen's business. And as I said, America's the last bastion of freedom and hope for the world. Literally, this is a God-given country, and God has put America in the position to have that safe haven for Christianity and free will for others. So I would just say have some courage moving forward. If you don't have courage, pray and ask God to find it, because a lot of people don't understand how things are going to go moving forward. I'm not a person who's very much into things like this, political or anything. I'm very diplomatic, and I had no previous crimes or convictions in any country in the world, not even speeding. I very much kept to myself, but when God calls you to do something, if you trust Him and follow Him, He will protect you on that journey no matter what. And whatever He says is for you, no one can take it. When He says is your last day, is your last day. So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But if you need help, please reach out to us. We'd be more than willing to do what we can. Take the research, file some complaints, and let's get some justice for what's going on. And if you want to look in the recent court cases, we've recent filed to the 4th Circuit, like last week, I think. Just reach out to us. We'll give you the research and see what we can do.
And just one other question for you, ladies, and this pertains to Kaysha's father. Is your father safe in Canada?
Well, right now, he is still being persecuted, but he's he had to flee as well from, we both were in Saskatchewan. This happened in North Battleford, Saskatchewan, and we were forced out of our homes and lost everything. We were robbed of everything, and our bank accounts closed, everything. So he had to flee to Alberta to stay with my grandmother, his mother, and other family, where he's still being persecuted, but I fled to the U.S. He sent me here because he knew it would be safer, despite the potential risk of what was going on, and I think that's true. Despite everything I've gone through, America is still safer than Canada. If we were together, we'd both be in a body bag somewhere.
Right, yeah.
So
if we were not together,
yeah.
100%.
And like you said, sir, my father, he's a Canadian. He's doing this as a Canadian. So the Americans, I always grew up with the understanding that Americans are not people to play with. And I think when they're ready to put something down, they're ready. But people have underestimated Canadians. They used to think Canadians were ruthless in war, that they were all kind until it was time to kill something. And so I think people are seeing that now, and I'm hoping that Americans don't allow the Canadians to put them to shame, because we don't really even have the numbers to do so.
Okay, well, ladies, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.